Thank you guys so much for coming. So today we're going to be talking about student internships and other international opportunities. And so my name's Caitlin. I'm a PhD student in anthropology, and I'm just going to have our panelists introduce themselves, and then I have a set of questions that I will ask them, and then they can each answer. And then after that, if any of you have questions, feel free to ask. So, go ahead.
I'm Teresa. I'm majoring in international relations with a minor in Arabic and second major in Spanish. I am an undergrad and
Hi everyone, I'm Maddie. I'm getting my master's in Latin American Studies with a concentration in conflict, peace, and rights. I'm from East Tennessee though, and I got my undergrad in international studies, Hispanic studies, and history, and then I taught English for abroad.
Hi everyone, my name is Selene. I am an international student from Argentina. I did my undergrad at UNM, and now I'm currently doing my master's in political science. And I also have multiple jobs. I work for a diverse set of people that are including from law school, the Latin American Studies Department, and the political science department.
Hi everyone, I'm Naserian. I'm an undergrad. I major in international studies with a focus on environment and sustainability in the Middle East and Asia. And I also do women's studies. And I'm originally from Tanzania.
Great. So first, I'll have you guys just talk a little bit about the internship and international opportunity that you took part in, and then also maybe mention like why you decided to pursue that particular opportunity. Go ahead.
I was because of the opportunities that the Cunningham Fellowship, among others, made possible for me. I was able to go abroad to study in Spain at one of the crossroads of Iberian and Arab cultures, which is Granada, and I was able to focus on my communication in both Arabic and Spanish, as well as just gaining a much more deep cultural understanding of both cultures.
So I've done a few different experiences. In undergrad, I studied abroad in Costa Rica and Spain. And then after I graduated during the pandemic, and I was like, I need to take a break. I knew I wanted to do graduate school, but I wasn't sure in what area, so I went and taught English abroad in the Basque Country region of Spain for a year, and then I came here. And while here, I've done a few different opportunities. I've worked with the Library of Congress as a junior fellow. I worked with the Department of State through their Department of State internship program, with the National Park Service through the Virtual Student Federal Service internship, and at the Department of Justice here in the New Mexico Albuquerque office. So I pursued a lot of different opportunities. I guess mainly I wanted to learn more about the world, learn different perspectives, which is why I really pushed to study abroad a lot. And then once I decided that academia wasn't where I immediately wanted to go long term, I knew I needed to build some professional experience. Broaden my skill set, and so I just started applying for everything multiple times until I started getting internships and pursued the ones that offered professional development opportunities, but also that were paid as much as possible, because that's really important. So yeah, happy to talk about any of those experiences if you guys have specific questions about that.
About the internship. So it was post-pandemic, and as I mentioned, I was an international student here. Initially, it was very hard coming to the US and getting experience just in general in both academic and outside experience because of the constraints to being an international student, and also because of the lack of connections and experience in general, because jobs ask for experience before they hire you for the entry jobs. So it was I was in the middle of my junior year, and it was right after the pandemic, so everything was kind of going back to opening, and it was very slow. So I decided to apply for the Cunningham Fellowship as an opportunity to gain experience in the field, because I knew I wanted to eventually work for an international organization. So I kind of started browsing, and I decided to gain experience by joining a non-profit organization in the state of New Mexico that is called Global Ties, which is part of a State Department program where they would bring international leaders to Albuquerque. And I got to experience it from the post-pandemic world, which was very different. So yeah, it was an interesting experience.
That's really cool. I am an international student from Tanzania, and when I first decided to come to UNM, actually it wasn't like top of my list, but it did have really good programs, and I've had a history of like traveling a lot when I was younger, so I definitely knew that international studies was something that I wanted to do. So I applied to a lot of schools, like across the globe, but UNM gave me the biggest scholarship I applied, which is why I picked it. Although I figured that this was kind of the best decision for myself. I did want to study abroad from my country to build like global connections, also kind of being independent. I wanted to work in a different environment. I wanted to study in a different environment. And luckily, my department, like the International Studies department, is really good at giving us those opportunities. Like, aside from working at the Global Education Office and as a resident advisor on campus, my department has given me access to like the Cunningham Scholarship. I've gotten the Arts and Science Scholarship, in addition to scholarships that were given to as international students. I've also been selected to be a World Affairs Council Scholar, which you get to go to DC and like participate in meetings. So I'm able to do all of that because my department, my International Studies department, is very resourceful, and basically, yeah, I think UNM is really good. It's the best choice for me right now.
So, do you guys have any advice for people considering applying and participating in similar programs? Whoever wants to start.
I can start? Or do you want to go? No? Okay. I would say do as much research as you can. I didn't, it was really hard to learn about all the opportunities that I eventually applied for because I grew up in a more, I would say insular community. In my undergrad, even though it was a liberal arts school and very helpful and had a strong international education department, there were still limits to the opportunities I could pursue. I couldn't do an unpaid internship and move to DC without any funds. And at that time, most of the internships, even the federal ones, were unpaid. So I just started after I moved abroad and then came back. I reached out to my past professors. I was like, who do you know? Who can I have informational interviews with? Who can I talk to about their experiences? And then through talking with them, I met more contacts through them and started looking on LinkedIn, just searching up jobs that I would be interested in and looking at people's different backgrounds and seeing how they got there. There's a lot of different ways to get to where you want to go, but it's helpful to learn from what others have done. Sometimes I just cold emails people on LinkedIn, and I found them to be very helpful because the systems are really confusing and it's hard to get through that initial barrier. So yeah, I would say do as much research as you can. Don't be afraid to reach out to people and have informational interviews and coffee chats. More than not, they'll be really helpful. And I also say keep applying. Most of the things that I've done, I applied to multiple times, which was really discouraging at first because I was like, oh, I'm just not qualified enough. I should have gone through an Ivy League. My goodness, why didn't I go to all of these elite preschools, yeah, which is impossible. But honestly, you're more qualified than you know, probably, and you bring a wealth of experience in other ways than other people. And so don't compare your journeys. keep applying, and you'll get there when you're ready.
For this one and for others, I would just recommend just to pour your heart and soul into what you're writing and to not be afraid to pursue exactly what you want, because, I mean, you'll get there if you want it, and just putting your intention out and really going for it. In terms of actually writing for these scholarships, for this one, I personally got the Gilman Scholarship, which was really helpful and also was a great connection with the State Department. So that's one of their it's one of their scholarships for Pell Grant recipients. And yeah, I would just say with those, just being really clear and concise in your writing while maintaining like a lot of detail and in life really in your words, and just rereading again and again, and as many drafts as you need to get it as perfect as possible. But like you were saying, just reaching out to professors, to contacts, and just asking them to read it for you, chime in, just reach out. And putting yourself out there is really, really good, and people respect it and they want to help.
Yeah, I think definitely, emphasis in putting yourself out there, but I think when you get to the career world and even the academic setting and like professional setting, definitely connections matter, and like at the early stage it is very hard to start having the connections, right? So I would say, you guys are doing the right thing, going to events, trying to get to know people, asking your professors. Your professors are the best help that you can get because they are already on the field, they are already connected, and they have been there for a while. And I will also say, it is very important to incorporate all of the skills that you're having, even if they are not related to exactly what you want to do. Like, you can tailor the skills for your current jobs that might not necessarily be related to make it fit into the application.
It's really good. I really agree with networking. I think just not being scared to ask questions. For example, my first job, I just walked in and I was like, "Are you guys hiring?" It does really help to ask, and it also does really help to do your research. For example, I was talking about the opportunities offered by my department, but sometimes I'm not even sure of other opportunities offered in other departments. So it just helps to ask. Networking is also really good, and building connections with your professors. My professors are they write most of my recommendation letters, and I'm really thankful for them because your professors are one of the most material sources that you can use to be successful. Like, you can use them applying for jobs, applying for grad school, literally anything. So definitely networking and building relationships with your professors is very useful. Also, just not being scared to ask and not giving up as well. So, I'm not saying go harass people or anything, but definitely sometimes don't take no for an answer. Sometimes you have to try multiple times to get it. If you don't get it the first time, that doesn't mean it's not meant for you. Maybe it's just different timing.
So all of you kind of already touched on this, but what kind of skills do you think are really useful for these opportunities, and how do you think people can kind of develop them?
Well, as we mentioned, definitely networking. There's multiple organizations, across the state and across the city that can help you, get involved. And they are specifically tailored for youth and for you to, get involved into city events and get to know people. They also have gatherings for you to connect with professional people and learn about what they are doing. So definitely utilize those. I would say, again, definitely utilize your connections in the university. Especially, if you find a subject that you like or a class that you like, connect with that professor and tell them that you're enjoying the subject. professors definitely like to hear that, and they would definitely help you if they know that you're interested in the topic.
I would say just being outgoing. You can be, I think, being outgoing, you don't have to turn yourself into being a goer, but when you are in public spaces and when you're going to events hosted by your department or by the school, it does help to be outgoing and just asking questions. I already said that, but it really is helpful. I've think I've learned about a lot of opportunities by just walking up to people or just being like, just outgoing, like, oh, I'm into this, and they're like, oh, really, you are? I do this, and this, you know? So it does help to be outgoing.
Building off of those great points, I would also say building adaptability and flexibility is really great. For me, that took a while. I'm not naturally outgoing. This actually makes me really nervous. Public speaking is not my forte. But honestly, I would recommend doing things that make you feel uncomfortable, because those are the best ways to learn, to challenge yourself, to build self-confidence. And once you have that level of confidence in yourself and your own abilities, I think that shines through, whether you're studying in another place, in another culture, encountering those difficulties. Learning another language is, you have to get used to making mistakes all the time. Or if you're pursuing different professional opportunities, oftentimes you start an internship and it turns into something completely different. And that can be great, but it can also be a little frightening. So getting used to being adaptable, to going with the flow as much as you can, and being confident in yourself and your own abilities will help with all of that, I think.
So, what kinds of challenges? I mean, this is related to what you're saying, but what kinds of challenges have you guys, did you or have you experienced, and how did you overcome them?
For me, personally speaking, at the beginning it was very discouraging to apply and not hear back. Especially when it was like entry jobs and they would be like, oh, entry jobs for people with no experience, but you need to have 1 year of experience, and you're like, how do I get the experience if this is the entry job? So definitely keep pursuing, what you want to do, but also look for the opportunities, because there's opportunities out there that nobody is really using, and those are perfect for you to start building. Even if it's not what you think that might be exactly what you want to do, sometimes those are the opportunities that open the door for you for everything else.
Sure. I will say another challenge that I think I alluded to before, but culture shock is very real, especially when you don't expect it. You think you have an idea of what it is. And I had never left the country before when I first went to study abroad, but I was like, I'm really passionate about this, I'm gonna do it. No one in my family had left the country either, so I didn't really know what to expect. And I found the first few months really challenging. And forming a community however you can. I think that applies to, honestly, if you're studying abroad, but also like in different internships. If you move to a new place, finding a community of people who can support you through that is really helpful. So definitely lean into the networks, not only because it will help you professionally, but also because it'll help you personally. And when you personally succeed, you'll professionally and academically succeed.
I would say some challenges I encountered were things not being catered for international students. For example, I tried to apply to scholarships and it would be just catered to citizens. To that, you kind of have to find the resources that fit you. It's hard, but when you find that community, it's so much better. For example, if I'm looking for international scholarships and I'm looking not there, it might be more helpful to approach the international office and be like, oh, what types of scholarships do you guys have? Kind of like that, and also asking other international students what scholarships they're applying for, because some of them have been here for longer and they've also applied for scholarships, so it is useful to ask them how they navigated that. So that's good.
So, to what extent have language skills played a role in your experiences? And if you could just talk a little bit about your experience in general with learning languages.
So, I started with it. In my case, definitely what opened every single door for me was knowing languages. Knowing languages was what brought me to the US. I was learning English in Argentina, and it was through a connection through my English professor that I came to the US. When I was in my undergrad, I got jobs because I could translate. That was like my first research job, and even now, in the point where I'm doing graduate school, sometimes I get asked, in research projects to translate. Like, it is super useful. You can, through languages, you can also have, immense resources. You can double your resources for, learning and reading, and also it has opened, the ability to connect with other people that might not be so open to interact with you if they don't know, your ethnicity and your heritage.
I would say I haven't really struggled a lot with speaking English here just because my country also does kind of speak English, so it hasn't been hard. But it does help to be bilingual, so I do get a lot of opportunities sometimes if we get translating and just for example, there's many refugee centers in Albuquerque, which I can also work in because I'm bilingual. So it does definitely help to speak another language, although it hasn't been hard for me to exercise that either.
For me, I think language has been really important. When I'll just talk about it in relation to different experiences. So when I went to teach abroad in Spain, you don't actually have to speak any Spanish to go and do that. But it's a great learning opportunity. You're immersed in Spanish all the time. And so I went in with, I would say, an advanced level, and it really helped me get into the community. And my language skills really flourished because I was already familiar with it, and then you're in an immersive environment, and so you really get to learn a lot through that. But if you're interested in pursuing that opportunity, you can have a beginner level of Spanish, but I would encourage you to learn at least some because you do have such an opportunity to improve your language level there. With the internship with the Department of State, I think having a background in Spanish is what got me the job. My supervisor later told me, like, we picked you because you have language skills, because you have an area studies focus, and I don't think I would have been considered without that. Let's see what else. I'll also say I studied Spanish because I really liked it. It wasn't my plan when I went into undergrad. I just kind of kept going with it. And then coming here, I always had an interest in learning Portuguese, but it just didn't really fit into my plan. I didn't apply for the FLAS on time. And so I was worried that I would never get the opportunity to learn Portuguese. But the Critical Language Scholarship opened up, and the language level requirements vary every year. But this past year, it was lowered to beginner level. So you could start learning Portuguese without having any background in it at all. And I found that when I got it, like 75% of program participants also had a background in Spanish. And it also really allowed me to learn the language a lot quickly. I went from like an elementary level to like high intermediate in 10 weeks, which was insane. It took me a lot longer to learn Spanish than it did to learn Portuguese. But it was really helpful for that, and I think it's also what helped make my application stand out. So yeah, I would encourage any language learning you can do. If you're interested in learning a language but don't think you'll have the opportunity, apply to whatever presents itself, because you never know, you could get it.
So, how have these opportunities shaped your academic and career plans and paths?
Is there? Okay. So I had an interest in pursuing a career in international affairs for a long time, starting in undergrad, but I didn't think I didn't think that it would be possible because throughout undergrad I didn't really have any internship experiences. I applied, but either they were unpaid or I just didn't really qualify or they were looking for someone else. And so I think doing study abroad, learning different languages, doing area studies, and also doing these various professional experiences has enabled me to really learn what a career in international affairs would look like. I think once you get an opportunity into a professional experience, that's really where you have the opportunity to learn what all career options there are. Because I went into it and I wanted to do something in national security, and that very quickly changed once I realized what that meant. And so I would say any internship opportunity you have the option to do is a great opportunity to learn what careers there are and where your interests align and where your background aligns. And once you figure that out, that's when a lot of other internship opportunities started opening up for me. And it was hard work. I applied to them, I did the work, but I think learning where your focus is, where you're most passionate about, and building skills through that is what will allow you to continue succeeding.
Yeah, I think for me, definitely the internship that I did for the nonprofit was the first job I had that was oriented towards my career goals. Um, and it was very significant for me because I could develop skills, networking skills. It connected me through the entire, like with people in the state of New Mexico. I met other people who were in my same career that even nowadays I still run into when I go to get new jobs. It also allowed me to, start building a resume, and then also to start developing specific skills that I could use for my future career. And I think it also, kind of like how you were saying, like it allowed me to define what I liked and what I didn't like, because I was in the same spot where I knew I wanted to work for like the international affairs area, but again, I thought that I wanted to do more like the stuff that are like with conflict related, and like nowadays, I'm kind of realizing that I like more like the international development area. So definitely, internships are like almost like you get to get your feet on the water, try it, and then see if you like it and if you want to continue on that path.
Could you read the question again? So sorry.
So how did this experience shape like your academic or your career path?
Okay. I think so. When I first came to UNM, I was just enrolled like as a women's study major, but after seeing that they were in the same department, I chose also international studies. And for the longest time, I didn't pick a concentration. Like I was just like, I'm an international studies major, but I don't have any concentration. So I kind of had to evaluate what I was really passionate about. If you do have, the privilege to study what you're passionate about, I think you should go for it. So, so I realized that obviously I was passionate about women and like the environment. So I decided to take that course of action. Also, I did start working at the Global Education Office, and for some time, I thought, for example, maybe I wanted to do conflict, peace, and diplomacy. But the more I kind of worked in the office, I was like, maybe that's not the best part for me. Or education-based things related to international studies. I figured that wasn't the best thing for me. So I would say just doing your research really helps. So yeah, I think.
Great. Yeah. So what was the most or has been the most rewarding part about this opportunity? And if there are any particular highlights you want to mention?
I think for me, this is funny, but I didn't know this at the time that I applied for the internship. And as I mentioned, it was this semester right after COVID, so everything was crazy. Nobody had their offices opened. So the way I got the internship was through I went and I asked a professor. I was like, I'm in my junior year. I need to get experience in my field. I need to do something. And it was the summer, so he said, okay, here are a list of the offices. I don't even know if they are open or not because of COVID. Like they might still be online. Here are the list. Go ask. So I went and I asked, and let's say there was like 5 offices. Out of the 5, 2 of them were going back to having internships, and I was the only person that had inquired because still COVID was a thing. For some reason, I kind of just out of nowhere picked one of them. There wasn't really like any like logical reason, and it happened to be that the director for that organization was a Mexican woman who had come here as an international student and had got her work visa through the through a different job, but then stayed to work for the organization. So definitely it was, kind of seeing, where I could be in a future, kind of. So it was, very rewarding.
I think the thing that was rewarding for me is just going to class, kind of, and talking to my professors. I think, like, especially within our departments, we have very knowledgeable professors. I just love speaking to them. I think that's really rewarding for me. Also, getting opportunities like these to speak to other people who are in the same major and same scope as you is really rewarding for me. I have gotten like scholar opportunities and research opportunities, and I think those were also very rewarding for me. So,
For me, I feel like I've met a lot of really cool people in every experience that I've done. And initially I went into it and I was like, I'm all about work. Like I gotta build that professional experience. I gotta build a network. But like be open to the people around you because they're there for a reason as well. They're probably also really curious about the world, also like really open-minded. I'm gonna be in like one of my friends' weddings this coming summer who I met at one of the internships. I'm still in contact with like my old supervisors. They've been really helpful and just like reaching out to like, hey, this is where I want to be. I have to decide between these 2 really great opportunities. Like, can you help me think this through? And they may not be able to provide an answer, but like they can give you their informed opinion and thoughts, and that's also really useful. And then like a fun story. So my internship with the Library of Congress was virtual. So like I'm a nerd. I would have loved to like be able to go to the library, but it was remote, so I never got the opportunity. But my internship with the Department of State was in person. And so my last day, my supervisor was gone, and I was like, I'm not really doing anything. My supervisor had given me free reign for the day. It was my last day, and so I reached out to my old supervisor at the library, and I was like, hey, what are you doing? I would love to come visit. And I got like a behind the scenes tour of the library and like went through the stacks, and it was really cool. So yeah, like keep in touch with the people you meet along the way. It'll lead to some really cool experiences.
Great. So those are all the questions that we have prepared. Thank you guys so much. Do we have any questions from the audience?
So for me, I just got back from South Africa, so to hear you here from like Tanzania was super cool to hear. I went out there for work, but just going out there and the experience was like super cool. So when I saw this, I was like, well, I gotta check it out because just to see what opportunities you have to be able to travel is just like super cool, right? So you guys talked a lot about like taking advantage of resources and stuff that people don't really take advantage of. So like, where are you finding these things, or what are you just like? Is just in a are you just searching from on the internet, or is it anything with UNM, or like just curious where you guys are finding the opportunities that you guys are taking advantage of?
I would say definitely look at the websites, and then they probably have like a tab that says like opportunities or like funding, something along those lines. And then good resources, probably the International Studies Department, Latin American Studies Department, GEO, like the Global Education Office, maybe depending on whether you're, like if you're a graduate student, graduate studies has a lot of like information, even like the specific like centers, like for example, if you're trying to do, like if you're trying to study and you need funding, like El Centro has like,
Gotcha.
for like Latinos, it's, and like those type of things. Outside of UNM, definitely organizations like Global Shapers, they connect a lot of people. I'm pretty sure there's like there's a youth, I'm blanking on the name right now, but there's like a youth group that is like for professionalism. There's clubs, LinkedIn, it's like, you know, if you go to LinkedIn, you're gonna get lost with the amount of opportunities, but specifically in LinkedIn, there's certain pages that are called like opportunities for youth professionals, and they have like, they post like 5 internships a day. That is like the best one.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay, also just build off that, it's okay. LinkedIn is overwhelming, but I have like 1 million alerts. So like find the keywords of what you're looking for, which can take some time. Like search the internet, see what jobs you'd be interested in, even if they're not active. Sometimes they'll still like, in the future, there might be an opportunity for an internship with this department or something. And so then I make like my little LinkedIn key search term. And I set that, and so I get alerts every single day. I have one for LinkedIn, I have one for Indeed, I have one for Handshake. If you're interested in public service, USA Jobs, you can also create alerts for that. And finding opportunities, aside from that, once you find, like, for me, it was the internship with the Library of Congress, where I started finding and like learning about other opportunities by having different coffee chats with different people who were in different positions throughout the library. So even though like I wanted to do international affairs and I loved archives, they were still like, oh, I know about this, I've heard about this, and so then I could just kind of start searching from there. So yeah, I would recommend all of the alerts and talking to as many people as you can.
Thank you.
And you can ask ChatGPT.
Oh,
ChatGPT, you can tell ChatGPT, hey, I want an internship for this kind of job. Give me all the summer internships that are happening in 2025 and be as specific as you want to.
Just make sure it's real.
Yeah, just make sure that it's real.
Chat doesn't
Yeah.
lie sometimes.
Yeah.
A lot of fake information in chat GPT.
Anything else? Any other questions? Okay. Well, thank you guys so much for being here. It was fun to hear about your experiences, and I think people will like learn from that for sure. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.